K.com presents AFN Live with Kevin Drake.
They've brought it back, and they've actually done really good, even though their record is 2-2.
Michael Washington Weeks.
I think Los Angeles might be one of those, hotbed, quote-unquote, coaches. I think you'll see a veteran coach in St. Louis to try to bring in the crowd.
Coach Lynn Hart Jr.
Feel each other out, so to speak, and stick with the run game and find plays that work.
John Turner.
He was also Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach over there in Indianapolis. And that Peyton Manning, he was pretty good too, I hear.
Week 7, Alliance. There's some great games that happened this weekend. Like the one we just got done watching, that was a great one, seeing our first overtime game of the season. I'm your host, Kevin Drake, and tonight we're going to give you the latest news and updates around the alternative football world. But first, we're going to start off with the Alliance games. Let's turn it over to Coach. You're going to give us your thoughts about the Salt Lake City San Antonio game.
Hey, everybody, how we doing this week? Another good game in the Alliance, close ball game, went back and forth. I really watched this game closely. Michael has been a big fan of Salt Lake, or really understands what's going on with that team. And this week it was basically a byproduct of their season. The offensive line has struggled. Penalties really killed them at the worst times. And in this game, Logan Woodside was able to have an efficient game, 13 for 19 before he left, and then Marquise Williams came in and really was a productive backup. 2 for 3 passing for 50 yards and a touchdown. And then his 6 rushes were really most important, only for 20 yards, but they were most important. So allowed San Antonio to post another win in a close game and another tough loss for Salt Lake.
Salt Lake's always bringing the fire every week, and no matter win or lose, they're fighting it. In San Antonio, they're showing their grit. They're showing that they are one of the best teams in the Alliance. And you brought up Michael himself. Michael, give us your thoughts about the San Diego, Arizona game.
How is everyone doing tonight as well? The San Diego, Arizona game was one that actually was probably the most important of the weekend for both teams. San Diego started kind of, offish in week 1, got hot, had their starting quarterback get hurt. Bercovici came in the last couple of weeks and has played nicely. But, the Fleet just don't have the same offensive flow with Bercovici as they did with Philip Nelson. So I think that they're a team that's on the decline. The Arizona Hotshots, on the other hand, started hot, got cold. They're picking it back up now with John Walford playing at the absolute high level. He's probably the second best quarterback right now in the Alliance behind Garrett Gilbert. And Hotshots put themselves in great shape to make the playoffs here or make a late playoff push. So the last couple of games here, it's going to be a nice run in the Western Conference.
Definitely. San Diego and Arizona, they've been putting great numbers up. Now, Orlando and Atlanta, these two teams, whether it be football, soccer, or anything, there's a history behind Orlando and Atlanta. But in this game, Orlando just dominated. Granted, they are the best team in Alliance at 6-1. Atlanta being at the bottom, or Atlanta having so many issues, it's unreal. But Orlando came out and showed you, they have a loss, but they're still the best, and they put Atlanta on notice, and it was crazy. Now, I do have to say we have some great numbers. But in the attendance numbers in Memphis, the game we just saw, 13,750 in attendance, which for a normal football game, whether it be NFL or anything, it's pretty low, but it's good. Like, I think it's a big decline. It's a big incline with Memphis because I know they've been having lower numbers. In Arizona, though, they had a big drop-off of only 9,760 in attendance. And then in Atlanta, for Orlando and Atlanta, it was 11,416. But the biggest one that we have for San Antonio And Salt Lake, 30,345 in attendance in the Alamo Dome. And you saw nothing but Commanders gear. Now, before we turn it over to John to talk about the game we just saw in Memphis and Birmingham, we do have a special guest with us tonight, RJ Villagomez. He is here from his podcast. Tell us who you are.
That's right, guys. Hey, it's a pleasure to be joining you. Yeah, my name is RJ Villagomez. I host the Alliance Football Podcast. Find it on anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on Twitter at Alliance FB Pod. And yeah, I'm just excited to be on with you guys. I mean, I love talking to AAF to anybody and anyone who will talk it with me. So thanks for the invitation to come on.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Now, John, give us a little summary of what we just saw with Memphis and Birmingham.
Hey, Kevin, thank you. Who's Johnny? She said, Johnny Manziel in the building in front of 13,500 plus, their biggest crowd of the year. That doesn't come as much as a surprise. I thought there might have been a little bit more this week, but beggars can't be choosers. We get Johnny. And he came in and he played, limited playbook knowledge, I imagine, been on the payroll for all of half a week, partial pay for this week's first check. But what are you going to do? You're getting Johnny. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to get the highest rated of all the 4 games this weekend as well, with him being on the field and it being on NFL Network. About the third drive of the game, we finally saw him come in. Up till that point, Memphis moving the ball kind of slow, no points. But he came in and provided a big old-fashioned, old-school Johnny Manziel spark, and they lit up the scoreboard. I believe they got 14 with him out there. And, with that, it became a game. Don't look now, but Mr. 2.5 in a cloud of dust, Trent Richardson, had a great game on the ground. He had 5 yards of carry, 4-point high number, something like that. He had a phenomenal game. He had an incredible catch and run that was called back on a penalty. And my guy, wide receiver from the University of Maryland, I will not try to pronounce his name on the air, but he had a big game for a wide receiver. And I got a chance to meet him down in Birmingham when I went to go see the Orlando Apollos play there a couple weeks ago. Great game, very exciting when Johnny Manziel was not on the field, taking over the Galaxy, and this crowd who was chanting his name before he got on the field. I mean, they were going to get ready to boo Silvers out into the team bus out of the state of Tennessee. Okay, they wanted Johnny in there so bad, but when they decided to put Silvers back in the game, which was probably a good idea, with less than a minute to go on the clock in the first half, they put the guy with all the knowledge back on the field. And it was the right thing to do for Silvers and probably the right thing to do for Johnny, and turned out to be the right thing to do for the team as they picked up the W. But he became a cheerleader on the sideline, wasn't over there pouting that he wasn't out there. He was engaging with his teammates. Didn't really look like a deer in the headlights at any point in time that I recall. And what an exciting game for the league, for Memphis. I mean, not very exciting if you're a Birmingham Iron fan. I mean, it's like, God, they hired the Antichrist to be their quarterback, and he just came in and helped them beat us, and you were red hot to start the season, and now it looks like you're a 500 ball team. So, what a great game. Like I said, for everybody invested except for those on the side of the iron, and of course the CFL. But yeah, great game.
Definitely. Johnny's first outing, he was taken out a couple of times. We saw it back and forth, and he did a little bit. He got a couple of yards to the air, and he also used his legs a little bit. But Rod, give us your thoughts on what you thought about Alliance this week.
I was pleasantly surprised with pretty much every game. I mean, obviously that Orlando game got a little out of hand, but I just keep thinking every week that we're seeing better and better football being played. We're seeing these offenses get a little more comfortable with each other, and be it a backup quarterback that comes in or a starting quarterback, I just feel like these guys are getting more used to each other. And since this is a 10-week season, it's almost like we're going to see the best football in the last couple of weeks of the season. But I think we've come a long way from week one, and overall, I'm just really excited about the level of play. And then, to end the weekend, we had our first overtime game, and in a game that was, super competitive pretty much all the way through. I mean, neither team, even it looked like Birmingham might have try to pull away a little bit, but Memphis did a good job of coming back. But like I said, every week over week, we're just seeing overall improvement in every facet of play, and it's turning into a very exciting league to watch. So I'm just glad that we have football to watch in March in the first place.
Definitely. These games every week are showing us more and more of what the Alliance are. We're getting new things left, right, and sideways. I know last week we got Greg Ward Jr. of the San Antonio Commanders taking it back. Or actually, that was this week, I believe, taking it back all the way for a touchdown off of a punt return. But there has been, with the Memphis-Birmingham game, there has been a couple of things in the Birmingham front office and around that team that have gone down this week. And John, you brought it to my attention. You kind of showed me a little bit about it. But Birmingham woes, a couple of things going on in that organization. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, the vice president of the marketing department and the team president were both let go by the league this week. What I gathered from that is that Tom Dundon, the Mr. Moneybags, Scrooge McDuck, Mr. Investor into the league, he's got a lot of power. Because I can't remember the gentleman's last name, but Tom such and such, the guy that was the team president for the Birmingham Iron, worked for Tom Dundon over at the Carolina Hurricanes for about a year and a half before taking the job here in the Alliance of American Football. And so you got to imagine Mr. Dundon knows this guy's body of work. And, I wrote a little bit of not necessarily a review, but when I heard that they were let go, and you look to see who these people are and where they've worked before and, why were they just canned? And, I noticed the connection between him and Dundon. I remember I've been to 2 games now, and I'm on my way to my third in Orlando on the 6th of April. And out of all the 3 games that I called the team office ticketing department to deal with, to buy my tickets and parking passes and such, the Birmingham Iron were the least easiest to deal with. They're very disorganized. I left multiple messages with the guy who on his voicemail says he was away from his desk out of the office. And then I called again a couple days later. Well, he happened to be standing in front of somebody else in another department that I got a hold of, and they were like, yeah, the guy you've been leaving voicemails for, he's standing right in front of me. Oh, well, great. Well, I'm glad he decided to never give me a call back. I was afraid maybe I'd never buy a ticket. So, it starts from the top, this organization, and it works its way all the way down. I drive to these games. They're in smaller cities. You get highway banners, not a single banner advertised for the Birmingham Iron. I can tell you right now that the ones that were blank weren't going for much. And, there were plenty of strip club advertisements, lawyer advertisements, and loan officer advertisements, but none for the Birmingham Iron, So that lets me know that the marketing department needed a little touch up. And I think that's what Tom Dundon and his investment also saw, so he decided to let those 2 guys go. And they brought in a local guy, an ex-councilman in the city of Birmingham, a guy that's been a big-time supporter for the team ever since it was an idea on paper. So I think they've made the right move. And, you can see the connections between these guys. And, perhaps maybe he was just the fall guy for low attendance numbers. But the Birmingham Iron actually weren't doing that bad. But you got to remember, Birmingham is a football city, a football town, and a football town only, So it ain't like they're watching much Penn State wrestling down there. I can tell you that much. But, all in all, I think probably a good move in the long run for the league and the team.
Definitely. Now, I saw on social media throughout the week, John and Michael, you both were talking about the indoor football league and a couple of things that were happening with them, talking about uniforms and cities and everything. Michael, kind of want to start with you. What all did you find out this week? What all can you tell us about the indoor football league?
Well, I'm still in the process of trying to catch myself up. I'm probably a little bit less knowledgeable in that field as far as the leagues are concerned. I used to watch the Arena Football League back when they had the Arena Football 1 and Arena Football 2, but wasn't quite as well-versed or knowledgeable in it. So I'm still in the process of trying to pick some things up. But, I watched the Iowa Barnstormers Nebraska Danger game last night. Was coinciding watching the AAF on the NFL Network. And, the indoor football league, I don't know if they adopted a lot of the arena football rules or if they kind of did what the AAF did and kind of like had the groundwork and then changed a few things. But the game was exciting. It was close. But I just kind of mentioned offhand about the Nebraska Rangers uniforms being quite hideous in the nicest way possible. It's like this lime kiwi green with like pink socks and gray pants, and it just kind of looked very. I don't know. It didn't. We discussed uniforms last week with the AAF and how Starter did a good job with what they had as far as the uniforms are concerned. But I know the indoor football league wants to kind of like do things a little bit different, and they have more freedom and whatnot. But they just didn't really look professional from the Nebraska Danger side of things. I know the Iowa Barnstormers has been around for a long time. I know Kurt Warner was the quarterback for them back when the Arena Football League was around. So they probably had a little bit of an upper hand. But I just happened to mention it offhand about the uniform on that side of things. So
definitely. Now, John, you have a couple of things about the Indoor Football League that I know about. And one of the things is about LA and their president. And something that's different about them. Go ahead and tell us about that.
LA and the XFL.
On the XFL, yes.
Heather Brooks Karatz, ladies and gentlemen, is our new team president, announced this week by the XFL, the league, and they've bounced that around every wall of their social media outlets on a couple different occasions. And Michael, I believe you're from my part of town, give or take a few miles. Miss Brooks Karatz is from Falls Church, or Great Falls, Virginia. Okay, which is about as far from the city as I live here in Rockville. But guess this. She went to CES JDS Jewish Day School, which has got to be 2 miles from my front door. So she is from my hood. I know this school that she went to because I actually, believe it or not, went to a dance there way back in the day when Christ was a corporal. So she's a hometown girl of the D.C. area, younger than me. I'm afraid to admit I definitely am in the wrong line of business and should have paid more attention in school, seeing that she is now a professional sports team's president, and I'm talking about her. But she's from the area. Her first job in sports was is at the Verizon Center in a marketing department. She worked with Ted Leonsis, doing various types of marketing for both the Wizards and the Caps. There at the Verizon Center, ticket packages and things like that. Vanderbilt got a bachelor's. She's worked her way up here. She finished the degree at UCLA 2009. She was a temporary attorney for the NFL. Like a league. She's not an attorney, but she was in the legal department. On the owner's side of the league, the NFL, and she's had her own blog for a while, Sports Girl. I love sportsgirl.com. And, I read one of her little blogs today. It's very cute. It had a pink background, very fluffy. And, then here's the big one, guys. She was the vice president of Relativity Sports. And they were a marketing agent firm. They had over 300 athletes signed. She was there for quite a bit. About 3 years, actually, but that company actually went bankrupt, filed for bankruptcy, picked up by another investment firm. She stayed with the company for about 6 months. They let her go and all the high-level execs go, kept all the agents and, of course, all the players they had under contract, because if you're an agent firm, that's where you're making your money with the players. No players, no money, no contracts to take percentages from, right? So you let the higher-up people go and make examples out of them, and you get new people at cheaper money when you buy out a firm that just went out of business. So that's a little bit of history there. She was unemployed for about a year. And then she was, she came back up again at the Los Angeles Football Club, it's a soccer in this major MLS, in the soccer league. So she's been there for quite some time. Out of work for a little while, but here she is again. All of a sudden, almost like out of nowhere, like boom, pow, I see this thing that says they've hired a team president. And I go, oh, okay, because they haven't announced any other team presidents across the league up until now. And it kind of got me a little curious, all of a sudden they announced this hot, mid-30s, young lady to be a president of a football team. So it makes you do a little research, and nothing on this resume is really lighting the world on fire. I got to tell you, I don't know exactly what qualifies her over me to be the team president, but I'm not going to complain too bad. She does have a big-time marketing and sales background, and she is going to be directly responsible for ticket sales, corporate partnership, marketing, content, communications, community relations, game day experience, things like that. I didn't see anywhere where it says she's in charge of finding the general manager, head coach, or the assistant coaches. So, it's almost like that Bob Slidell meeting on The Office. Like, what exactly is it that you do here as the president? But she is the president. Welcome to the XFL, Ms. Karatz. We wish her luck. I also thought the announcement had a little bit to do with it being a slow stretch of 2 weeks of news for the league, with the pro days happening in college right now, and other things going on that the league has been going through. It's probably put a little bit of a speed bump in their coaching search. So they were probably like, hey, let's get this announcement out there. Pretty face, LA, big city, sunlight, palm trees. She's got ties to the sports team out there, with the Los Angeles Football Club, and it's a feel good story and all that. So she's been in sports for a while. She's been in marketing for a while. So I hope she's the right person for the job. And if I have any faith at all in Oliver Luck, which I have a bunch of, I think he's probably made a pretty good decision.
Definitely. The one thing that I want to say about that is that with the big marketing background that she does have, making her the president of an XFL football team, I do think that when it comes to finding a general manager and a coach and everything and getting all that squared away, they're going to be directly involved with day-to-day football experiences, while she's going to be working on finances and making sure that the team can garner enough money. And when it comes to profit and sales, that'll be solely her. So instead of looking at what like Jerry Jones in the NFL making his multi-billion-dollar team in the Cowboys, she'll be doing it a little bit differently, but making a good bit of money. Now, Rod, I know you're here to talk with us about the Alliance of American Football League and everything, but we do talk alternative football here, and I wanted to get your thoughts because I don't know if you follow the XFL for what it's been doing the past couple of weeks, but what do you think this means for the football world in general, with her being the first female president of a football team, along with the first president announced for the XFL?
I think within the last couple of seasons, and we've seen the AAF do this too. They hired Jen Walters, who is a defensive coach for the Legends, and we've seen several steps forward with female officials, and we saw the female sky judge, and I think nowadays leagues are getting a lot more progressive as far as who they are hiring, and I think it's just making a huge difference as to what young women now in the sports world, because before it was, you could either be a sideline reporter, you could be a cheerleader, the positions, you could be an intern, but the sports management positions weren't necessarily open to them the way they are now. And I think with groundbreakers like the XFL is introducing and the AAF have been introducing into the league, I think it's giving young ladies now an opportunity to look at sports in a whole different light, because now they can be presidents of teams. They can be, coaches. They can be referees. There's no, and we don't know what that's going to lead into in the future. But I think all the doors that are opening because of these leagues, because now there's more outlets. The NFL, being as stifled as they are and as closed off as they've been, wasn't in the mood or didn't even need to breach these new barriers or break these barriers. And now these leagues that are popping up, the AAF, the XFL, anything like that, now they're starting to offer those opportunities that weren't there before. And I think more than the play on the field, I think those type of legacies are going to last longer than the leagues themselves, because these leagues could fold next season. But the simple fact of the matter is that now the door is open in future possibilities later down the road in more sports organizations for women to become presidents, to become coaches, to become front office staff, and big deals in sports in general.
Right. And one of the things that I saw, because I didn't see it make top news, I just saw the article on it, but Bruce Arians apparently has brought in 2 female coaches for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, oddly enough, which that's a first for the NFL. But I think what John was telling me earlier, that one of them was actually a coach for the Birmingham Iron. What can you tell me about that, John?
Yeah, gosh, I can't even. Her name's done slipped my mind. JoJo, or she's linebackers coach, I believe. I tell you what, she was darn near built like the best looking linebacker I've ever seen. That's for sure. And I can't tell you a whole lot about her personally. I remember reading a little bit about her in the preseason and reading about some of her experience, and how she had been around Lori Locust. Lolo, not JoJo. Lolo Locust. That's her name. Thank you. But, she's solid. Okay. She's got a competitive, heart, great drive. She demands a command, of men, and she's got the leadership qualities, that any team is looking for to have on their team, so Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Meryl Davidar, Lori Locust, both two assistant coaches on the same staff now on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some people will probably scoff at it and go, what are they doing down there in Tampa? They're never going to win a game. But I think it's a good move for the league as a whole and the sport in general. Once upon a time, there was a barrier that not people of different color couldn't even, get into the sport. And now look at this. We've got, all sex participating and everybody's doing a fine job. So I wish her nothing but the best. And I'm pretty sure you're going to be, hard pressed to find somebody that isn't pulling for either one of these young ladies on the Buccaneers moving forward. But I got to tell you what really bothers me, the only thing that really bothers me about this, it's a pay grade for them and a resume grade step up for them. But, man, this whole developmental league thing, it just keeps taking players and coaches off of rosters in the alliance, man. And just when you start getting used to how it is, poof, like Kaiser Sose, another one disappears. I don't know if I can get used to that. It's frustrating.
Definitely. Now, Michael, you just brought something up that apparently this isn't the first time a female coach has been in the NFL. As far as I know, I haven't known about that. Like we had last year or the year before that, our first female ref, but I didn't know that this isn't the first time we've had an NFL female coach. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, ironically enough, Bruce Arians, the head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, actually was the first head coach to bring in a female coach to his coaching staff. He had one in Arizona 2 years ago before he retired and took a year off. And actually, I believe one of the 2 females that he hired is actually the female coach he had on staff in Arizona 2 years ago. I believe she was a wide receivers coach, similar to the one that was down in Arizona. So, so I mean, as far as Bruce Arians is concerned, he's always been one of the pioneers for trying to get diversity and bring in, female coaches and stuff. He did it at a high school level as well. When he was coaching in high school before he made his, into college and whatever else. But yeah, I mean, he's, he was actually the first one to bring it on, and he's the first one to do it with 2 females on his coaching staff now. From what I know, there has been no other female coaches in the NFL still. So Arians is still kind of the trailblazer in this for the NFL.
That's good. Bruce Arians is paving the way for females everywhere to be a part of the NFL and other football leagues. The Canadian Football League has been holding their combine this weekend, they've had a lot of participants from around the world, not just from Canada and the U.S. and anything. It's around the world. Give us a little insight about what the combine's been like up there.
Well, again, Canadian Football League is another one of those alternative football leagues that I'm not super knowledgeable in. I'm still in the process of, catching myself up to speed with a lot. But it sounds like from everything that I've heard as far as the CFL is concerned, this is them opening up the doors for the international leagues that they've been making partnerships with over the last, year or so. John's touched base on that a lot. I know that it sounds like the combine up there is very similar to the combine that takes place down here in the NFL. A lot of the similar things, with the long jump, the 40 cone times, vertical, all that stuff. It sounds like it's there. What I find interesting here with this is they have a requirement up there that all the players participate in every drill and get tested, or they get sent home. We had two players, two of the top, recruits, or however prospects, however you want to call them, get sent home after the interview stage of the combine because they weren't going to participate. The number 2 overall prospect, he went up there knowing he wasn't going to participate in any of it. So I find that interesting because down here in the NFL, you can pick and choose. You can, say, I don't want to run the 40 today. I don't want to do the cone time, whatever it may be. And a lot of those athletes will save it for their pro day, whether they're battling injuries or whatnot. But apparently the CFL, they only have a certain amount of invites. And if you don't participate, you get packing.
I think that's actually really good that the CFL is doing that, because down here for the combine we have for the NFL, it's like Kyler Murray. He didn't do any of the workouts at the combine, and he still didn't even do the 40 at his pro day for Oklahoma. So it's kind of weird to know that the CFL is taking a lot of pride with that. And it's just like, if you're not going to do you're not going to show yourself here, then you don't need to be here. So I hope that's a good thing. I think the CFL is pushing it a little bit. I don't know. Go back to our previous question with him. With you having your experience coaching at the next level and everything, what do you see for female coaches and what they can bring to the table?
All right. What I was saying is, at the end of the day, at the professional level, it comes down to winning. And if you're able to contribute to a winner, I don't think in this day and age much is going to matter. So I haven't had the opportunity to coach with many females. I have had the opportunity to officiate and umpire with several females, and on each occasion, whether on the baseball field or the football field, those women did a nice job, and it was a good experience. So coaching's no different than officiating when it comes to sports. So you got to be able to get the job done, and you've got to be able to win the players over, and that starts with communication and knowledge.
Definitely. Now, we're getting to that point of the show. We're getting towards the end and everything. Rod, tell us a little bit about where we can find you, and give us your thoughts on what you expect to see in the next coming weeks with the Alliance and what you might see the playoffs look like.
Well, you can find my show. It's, again, the Alliance Football Podcast. You can find it on Twitter at AllianceFBPod. It's pretty much the only place I live. I mean, all the other social media places are scary, so I'll just stay on Twitter. But, and then, of course, you can find the show anywhere that you can find any other podcast, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts, and all that other good stuff. But, to tell you the truth, over the next few weeks, this is going to be a wild, crazy race for second in the East, especially. Orlando's basically ran away with this 6-1. There's pretty much I don't think there's any way that any of the other teams can vie for first. So I think Orlando's got this home playoff game on wrap. But the scrap is going to be for second, because Atlanta and Memphis still have a shot at Birmingham. And Birmingham, now with that, especially with the loss tonight, has shown they still are quite suspect. And they're not the 4-3 team that is like a Arizona Hotshots 4-3, where, or even a San Diego Fleet 3-4. I think Birmingham has the best shot of losing the 2 seed than anybody. And who's going to get it? I don't know. I mean, both Memphis and Atlanta still have work to do. The question for Memphis now is whether or not people have seen enough of Silvers to give him the start again, which I fully believe they should. Manziel does not need to start next week because, again, Silvers got booed. He had to play with people chanting another quarterback's name, and he still won them the game. So if that's not intestinal fortitude, I don't know what is. So, I think it's going to be a dogfight for second in the East. And for the West, I still don't think it's over. I still don't think San Antonio's got the 1 seed on lock. Arizona needs to continue to play like the favorites they were at the beginning of the season to try to catch them. They're only a game back. So I think it's still a fight for first. And I don't think Salt Lake is completely out of it yet either. I think, they have a couple of games where they can claw back in it. So, again, you're looking at more of a dogfight in the West than you are in the East for first. But I still think that it'll be a very good finish up to the season. So I'm going to say, if I'm going to make predictions now, I'm going to say it's Orlando. And even though I don't give Birmingham much of a shot, I think they still lock up the 2 because I don't think Memphis and Atlanta can get out of each other's way enough to put together 2 or 3 winning games. And then out of the East, I think San Diego comes back at it. And I think it's going to be Arizona and San Diego because I think San Antonio might have peaked and we might have seen the end of it, especially if Woodside is hurt for good. I know that Williams came in and led them, to a pretty good game, but I still don't think he's starter material. So I think it might be Arizona and San Diego there in the West.
Definitely. Arizona coming out of the preseason as a top favorite and then playing the way that they have. I mean, this season's gone topsy-turvy. We've seen multiple teams like Salt Lake. They were supposed to be they were considered the worst, and they're actually better than what the worst is. Atlanta with all the issues that they had. Birmingham with some of the issues in the staff that they have now, but still trying to push it out. Memphis bringing it back after Hackenberg, Mettenberger, Silvers, and Manziel now. But honestly, I think you're right on that. San Antonio, they are my team. They're my home team. But I thought they were good with Woodside, and then they brought in Williams, and it's just been weird for them. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think this season is not over yet. Nothing is set in the bag. Orlando is the only team that I believe can win it out, even with that one loss against Arizona of all teams, because Arizona was considered to be the number 1, and they actually went and beat the number 1. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens the rest of the season. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of AFNN Live. I'm your host, Kevin, with Michael, M-Dub Square, John Turner, Coach Linhart, and our special guest of the evening, RJ Villagomez. Good night, everybody.